Alright, so this week was an awesome week. We had a total sales of $2,284.43 with 45 items sold for an average selling price of $50.77. So this is for the week of May 3rd through the 9th. So the first item up is a pair of vintage France, they're vintage eyeglasses. There's not much to say about them. They are old, they were made in France, and they are eyeglasses. They sold for $9.44. Next up is a pair of vintage 14 karat gold scalloped hoop earrings. They sold for $43. Next is a vintage 18-inch gold tone genuine jade heart pendant necklace. And this one sold for $11. Next up, I'm pretty stoked about because these were my pants, and we cleaned out our closet it was about a week ago, 2 weeks ago. I think it's 2 weeks ago now. And I've already made about $100 off of just the crap that was in my closet. But these are a pair of Relaxed Fit Lucky Brand jeans. They sold for $21 plus shipping. Next up is a pair of sterling silver David Anderson earrings. David Anderson is a really great designer, and if you ever come across DA Norway stamp, maybe even I don't know if he does the whale as well. That might be somebody else. I thought it was David Anderson though. But in any event, David Anderson makes a lot of jewelry. Name to keep look out for if you're going to be buying and selling jewelry. These ones, little earrings, sold for $35. Next up is vintage Ray-Ban case. This is a brown one. This one sold for $11.20. Usually find them at garage sales or at Goodwill for about $1, maybe $1.99, somewhere around there. Next up, we have a vintage, it's like a little sterling silver charm. It's in the shape of a hen, and it opens up and it says no cover charge. I don't know. I couldn't find anything about it. It sold for $14. Next up, I used to find these all the time, but apparently Goodwill is on to Le Creuset, and this one is a Dutch oven, flame orange, very popular color pattern. It's gorgeous, and if I had the discipline to wait for pots to cool, I'd probably have one myself, but generally speaking, I just, as soon as we're done eating, I throw them in and I wash them up, which I'd probably crack this if it was mine. But this one I bought for $20, and it sold in less than a week for $110. Next up, we have 1928, which is not the year, but the brand, 1928 necklace. This one sold for $7.22. Next up, vintage multi-strand iridescent rhinestone necklace. This one sold for $8.39. Next up, you know how much I like brooches. This is like a little cameo brooch, but it has like fake pearls, and it's a fake, it's not real shell. Sold for $8.56. Next up, Spode collection, Copeland Spode. You should probably know this brand if you are going to be buying plates. This one sold for $20, bought for $1.99. Next up, we have a sweater clip. Out of all the things I buy and sell, sweater clips, I do not sell very many of these. Maybe like 2 or 3 a year. This one sold for $7. Next up, Masons. This is another piece of porcelain. China. This is Mason's ironstone. This one is like a footed fruit bowl, and this one sold for $75, and it also sold in less than a week. Next up, we have this is a set of Occupied in Japan creamer and sugar bowl. This one sold for $11, and it's always the small things that people want to complain about. But in any event, I got the feedback, and they said that they were disappointed because it was so small. The dimensions, it seemed like it was for a child's tea set. Well, unfortunately, that's not the case. The dimensions were in the listing. It wasn't hidden. I just copy the title, put it in the description, and I add the sizes. Nothing's hidden. It's not like some weird, it's not like that people in the old days used to write all their policies inside a description. But in any event, this is just, the Japanese, especially back then, serving sizes were much smaller. We're Americans and we eat like a bunch of fat asses. So in any event, it was still positive feedback, but the way she worded it, she was very much complaining about, it being a smaller size, which I contacted her and let her know if there's anything else I can do, I'd be happy to take a return. Next up, we have a pair of Calvin Klein eyeglasses. These sold for $16.80. Next up, Royal Stratford. This is another porcelain or china. This is a platter. It's on a smaller size. It's only 12 inches. This one sold for $25. Next, we have another sunglass case. This one's by Coach. I've had this for a very long time. This sold for $5.03. The next two items, which I'll put up here and here, they were sold to the same person. One is six dinner knives, and the other one's 5 butter spreaders. And the handles are sterling silver. Nothing else is sterling. The blade is not, and it's weighted. But together they all sold. It sold for $190. Next up, we have an antique sterling silver Ansley cup. It's like a little espresso cup. Ansley's a very good name if you're doing porcelain in China. But the thing that separates this one is not that it's really old, but because it's sitting in a sterling silver little like carrying thing with a handle. Next up, this person finally paid after about I don't know if it was 5 days or something, but it was a sterling silver baby spoon. Again, that was in the last video with the knives. This one sold for $24. Oh, the Ansley cup sold for $65. I don't know if I just mentioned that. Okay, this one was cool. I've had this for a few years now, but it's an antique candle holder. It's very beautiful. It's very aged walnut. Before everyone had electricity, you would have candles, and you would keep the candles kind of by the door in a little wooden box. This one, I had it up for a lot at first, but I dropped it down and eventually took an offer for $200. Next up, we have a German military award. This one sold for $13.99. Next, we have a pair of Prada eyeglasses. Now, you'd imagine that brands like Versace, Prada, Tiffany, they'd sell for a lot of money, but the eyeglasses really don't. This one sold for $45, which is on the higher end of what you're going to get for Prada. Next, we have an older pair of Chiron eyeglasses. These sold for $20. Next, another name to remember, Dux Unlimited. This one didn't sell for very much, and I've had it for at least 2 years. And it was a Dux Unlimited hat signed. I don't know who it was signed by, but it sold for $8.50. Next up, we have an antique snuff bottle. I bought a bunch of these probably about a year ago, and this one sold for $60. Next, this one sold in, so generally when I buy gold, a lot of it I hold on to a list, but I'll hold on to it and end up scrapping because it doesn't really sell for that much over scrap, and I tend to get the same amount when I scrap it. This one, on the other hand, it has about $150, $170 worth of gold in it. It's a 14 karat gold hinged bangle bracelet, and it sold immediately for $262. However, it trying to be transparent with you here, is that immediately upon her buying the item and me shipping it out, she contacted me saying that she didn't know she had to pay taxes. She didn't know she had to pay taxes. She does live in California. I don't know how she doesn't know she has to pay taxes. Besides where I live, I'm like the second highest tax compared to, where she lives is the highest being taxed. Where I live is like second highest. I don't know how you could imagine that you're not getting taxed. But in any event, she ended up contacting me as soon as she got it, asked to return it because she was unhappy. She said it didn't fit. I ended up contacting her. I said, I'll be happy, if this is about the taxes, I'll happy throw you $30 and we'll call it done. So in reality, I got $232, 20%. I'm still making a little bit over scrap, which is fine by me. It's perfectly acceptable. Not as good as it could have been with $30, but at least I'm not taking a return, having it get sent back to me. Just sometimes it just works out like that. It's easier not to fight anybody. Just accept it, move on. Not a big deal. Next up, we have an 18-inch pearl necklace. This one sold for $7.27. That's a perfect example of why pearls, I used to think that pearls were amazing. They're not. Everyone's got them. Nothing special. Next up is a Pandora. I mentioned this in the last video as well, with the stuff that I bought that lot. This one sold for 25 bucks. I was trying to move it pretty quickly. Pandora used to be very valuable. It has since kind of fallen off, and not as many people are buying it. So 25 bucks, awesome. Time to move. Next up, we have a What Would Jesus Do pendant. Now, I didn't see this one actually selling because What Would Jesus Do was a lot more popular a few years ago. This, however, sold for $16.80. I could not be happier with selling a sterling silver pendant for that much. All right, next up, we're moving into a few higher dollar items. We have an antique 1890s Barber silver wedding. It's like a wedding basket, flower vase type deal. But, you'd have these, set them out, and then you'd get your wedding gifts put in them. This one sold for 100 bucks. It's silver plate. I had it up for a lot more, but, if I can get 100 bucks, that's fine. I think I paid like 16 bucks for it, maybe. But that was like 3-4 years ago. Next up, this is a sculpture I got about a month ago. This is of a dentist. Actually, it's a funny story because when I was looking at this, I didn't see it at first. Right in front of it was a dentist holding a real tooth. And this is in Goodwill. It's very odd when you see like a real tooth, a sculpture holding a real tooth. But I moved that aside and I saw this and I was like, oh, that looks kind of cool. And I saw a signature, looked up the signature, and I saw that they sold anywhere from like 200 to a few hundred. But I put this one up for $1,000. Ended up getting a few offers, a lot lower offers, 200, 300 bucks. Eventually took an offer for 400 bucks. And I could not be happier. I shipped it out on Monday. It's supposed to be delivered today because it's going cross country. Fingers crossed that everything arrives safe. Hopefully. I did get insurance on that. It's you want to insure a piece of art like that. There's no going back if something happens to it. Next up, we have a Ritz-Carlton Boston ashtray. This one sold for $14 in about a week. This one was also in the video last week. This was an antique cuckoo watch, but it's like a pendant. So it's like it's a watch, but the women wear it around a necklace. Really small, but this one was in the shape of a cuckoo clock, which is quite rare. This one is not working. It needs to be serviced, but it's still sold for 60 bucks. Next up, we have a pair of whiskey glasses. Whiskey glasses do very well, especially if you find something that's kind of odd. This is the history of Glenview, Illinois, so it has a bunch of different things like from the Air Force Base. These sold for 37 bucks. I think I've paid $1 for each one, so to 37, that's perfect. Next up is a small, I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, but a glass bead bracelet, and this one sold for $3.50. Yes, I sold something for $3. I probably end up losing money on that with fees and whatnot. I don't know. If I didn't, I probably only made 75 cents. Next up is kind of funny. It's a Bro Montana gun outing ping golf hat. This one sold for $8.50. Next up, sterling silver ring, the little citrine stones in it. This one sold for $8. Next up, another pair of sunglasses. These are Ray-Bans. Vintage pair of Ray-Bans sold for 25 bucks. Next up, we have a vintage ruby cocktail ring. This one is signed LR. Not of the famous LR that you could look up and try to figure out yourself, but this one sold for 15 bucks. Sweet. Next up, we have another whiskey glass. This is from Alabama Space and Rocket Center. This one sold for $16. Last two items. One pair of bookends made of bronze. It's like a bronze coin on there. These pair I've had for about 2 years now. They sold for $30. Next up, I bought this 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago. Really cool set of whiskey glasses. All have different poisons on there. I forget which one. Cyanide, I know, was one of them. Hemlock was another one. These ones sold for $190. It was a set of 6. So, again, could not be happier. Let me know if you like to speed it up or slow it down, because I don't know. If I slow it down, I can talk more about things, but 30 minutes to watch what's sold seems a little bit redundant. In any event, this was $2,284.43, not including any of the shipping. That's just what the items sold for. There was 45 items for an average price of $40.77. I will see you next week with what sold.